Hi, my name is Emily Woodward, and I'm going to be telling my birth stories from my sons Wyatt and Reese. Firstly, my first pregnancy with my son Wyatt was totally uneventful. I felt fantastic. I loved being pregnant. I was actually due on January 30th of 2023, but I was totally convinced that I was going to be late because all of the women in my family historically have gone quite late with their babies. My mother was 42 weeks with me. My sister was 41 and 2 with her son. All of my aunts, I was like, I'm going to have a Valentine's Day baby, so I'm not worrying about much. So, in classic Emily fashion, I'm like, let's do my maternity photo shoot for the 28th of January because I'm still like 3 weeks out, right? And my
Wait
water
a minute,
breaks.
was that like your due date? What
Well,
was
my due date was January 30th, but the 28th, 2 days before, I'm like, Saturday, it's great. Let's go hiking. Let's go to this beautiful oasis in Northern California. It'll be wonderful. And then I wake up at 2 in the morning with some liquid coming out of me. I was like, sounds like we're not going to get there. Anyway, so I started to have like this slow trickle and things were fine. I didn't really feel anything. And then maybe about 6, 7, 8 hours later, I started to feel some things changing, some things happening, kind of feeling some discomfort, but nothing crazy. It just things are changing. So I'm like, okay, I think this is happening. Life is gonna change here very soon. So this is Saturday the 28th, and things are progressing. It's all good. Saturday night was fine. I was definitely having regular contractions, and then things progressed on Sunday, definitely more intense. The contractions were definitely getting closer together. And I remember getting, like 6 minutes apart. And I'm like, okay, right, we're really making progress. 5 minutes apart, awesome. But then my patterns sort of started to change. It got a little erratic and would kind of slide back to like every 8 minutes, every 9 minutes, every 12 minutes. The intensity kept building. And I never actually got to that like 411, kind of rule of thumb is like when you're supposed to call your midwife. So it just was kind of strange. And by the way, this was a planned home birth, and I was just so excited to give birth at home. It's going to be so great. I remember hearing all of the things, try to sleep, try to nourish, try to hydrate, try whatever position is comfortable. I was so wildly uncomfortable. At this point, it had been, a couple days of, intense contractions and everything. And the only position, my fellow yogis out there will understand this, the only position that brought me any kind of comfort was the biggest, most deepest child's pose. Like my butt was all the way up in the air, my legs were all the way in front of me, and I was like propped with pillows. Brought me the most amazing relief. And I just stayed there for as long as I could. And I just worked through the rushes and I worked through all of that. And anyway, so I was in this very bizarre contorted position for many hours. And anyway, very hard to sleep. Everything was uncomfortable. Monday rolls around and same kind of thing, this strange erratic pattern. I'd get close. I'd get to be about, every 6 minutes, every 5 minutes, and then I'd slide back again. And so I'm in conversation with my midwife. I'm like, what's going on? Should I be worried? And the fluid leaking was very little. It was like a tablespoon here and there every couple hours. So I was still walking, I was still doing my things. I was soaking in a tub, but I was checking my temperature. I felt like I needed the water more than anything, and it wasn't like a massive gush. So I felt comfortable with that, and my midwives were on board as well. So Tuesday comes along. So mind you, I've started labor on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Now it's Tuesday. And so my midwife comes over and she checks me and she goes, "Oh, you're 6 centimeters. I thought you were 5. You are 6 centimeters." And I remember feeling so thrilled because I'm like, yeah, I'm actually making progress. This is all happening. That something's happening. So that was really exciting. And so I was 6 centimeters, which was so awesome to hear. I did decide to do the midwives castor oil smoothie situation and promptly puked it all up. I got nothing. I'm sure I got nothing absorbed. And I ended up feeling very sick afterwards. Contractions continued. Pattern was weird. Intensity was a building. I was trying to nourish, trying to hydrate, all of the things. Nothing is helping. My doula at that point had joined us, and one of the most wonderful moments was her pouring water over me and just constantly keeping that water coming. And I'll never forget how held I felt when I was feeling really uncomfortable. So that was really great. Wednesday morning comes around, still same thing. So no sleep now at this point. Several days of really no sleep. And I decided to take the castor oil again. I'm like, I took it on Tuesday, but I threw it all up. I know I didn't get any. I feel comfortable doing this. And I kind of did this on my own. I didn't consult the midwife. It was 6 a.m. I'm not waking her up for this. So I did it. And then I really very quickly felt contractions start to build even more. So I'm like, okay, this is great. This is great. Wednesday morning, was feeling just, I was hungry, but I couldn't eat. My husband had made me this beautiful breakfast, and I remember wanting to eat it, but I couldn't, and feeling torn about that because I'm like, I know I need to nourish because it's been days and I just don't want to tuck her out. I don't want to tuck her out. So, okay, Wednesday. I now know retrospectively this was transition. And in the transition, I, wanted to jump out the window. I was like, I'm not doing this. This baby's just going to have to stay in there. I cannot do this. 5 minutes after I had that feeling of jumping out the window, my midwife comes over. She's like, why don't we do a cervical check, see where we're at? It's been days. And she goes, oh, honey, you are 10. You are at 10. And I was like, no way, really? I'm there. It was so exciting. It wasn't like this moment where I felt like, oh yeah, I should push. She told me I was at 10 and I was like, all right, cool. And we did start pushing. She was like, why don't we just give it a go? See what happens if you try to bear down, get in a comfortable position. For me, the best position to give birth, evidently, is actually on my back, but kind of in that rolled around my belly with my legs pulled up. I don't know how women without core strength give birth because every iota of power I gave this birth was from my core. Anyway, so a couple hours go by. He's crowning. We can see, the nice, pretty little spot of his head with his little hair, and it was so cute. And we didn't know it was a boy at this point, and all that. So, it's just going on and on and on and on and on and on. And so my midwives were like, "Okay, it's been 3 hours. Why don't we rest? Why don't we rest?" And I look at them. I'm like, "You guys want me to rest right now? You want me to sleep? Are you kidding me?" They're like, "Trust us. You need to rest." So I get all comfortable. My husband's got the hot water bottle, the TENS machine. My doula's putting droppers of like something in my mouth. I don't remember. Gelatin gummies. I got my labor aid. Guys, I was set.
You're
Oh,
resting while he's crowning?
yeah, he was crowning. I wasn't making any progress. Like he had been crowning for like hours at that point.
Was he going back inside? Like he'd
Not
come down with a
really.
push, or he's just sitting on your perineum stretched open
Yeah, yeah,
and
yes,
okay, okay, good. Keep going. How
yeah.
many,
Oh
by
yeah.
the way, how many days are we on now? How many days in
This
labor?
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This is now
Five.
coming into my fifth day. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, okay. So I'm trying to rest and it just is not happening. I'm like, I cannot believe these people think I'm going to sleep right now. That's hilarious. I now know why, because, you're trying to build your strength and all the things. So I'm laying there and my midwife comes in and she's giving me some herbs. For the life of me, cannot remember what they were. And she says, and I had this feeling. I was like, what's wrong? Like, I need you to tell me what's wrong. What's happening here? And I just want to take a moment and just say how much I love the midwives that I chose. They they are I chose them because they believe in female physiology so much that it made me trust myself even more, which I already had. I already had that. I knew I was going to give birth at home. I knew my body could do this. And I believe so much that it makes me want to cry, actually. I was like, that's why I picked these women. And so when she looks at me and she's like, we're not really making the progress we need to be making. Your baby's safe. My job is to make sure that he stays safe. So please trust me. And that's when I knew. I was like, felt like I was looking down the highway and like seeing lights coming at me, kind of visual in my head. I was like, she's seeing down the road where I can't think to see down the road, but she can. And this is why I chose her. So anyway, I'm kind of like in this moment, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. That's cute. They think they're going somewhere. So anyway, after some rest, they're like, let's try again. So I tried that, squatting position. My husband's behind me. I hated that so much. I jumped right out of it. I felt like a cat getting in water. I was like, I can't be in that position. It's horrible. Loved being on my back. Okay. So after another hour and a half of pushing, it's not happening. They're like, we really need to transfer. So I cannot tell you what it's like packing a bag with the baby's head crowning, putting yoga pants on and getting in a Subaru and going to the hospital. I can't tell you like, but and I totally felt that experience of like labor stalling because like contractions immediately stopped. I stopped feeling anything except this bulging head coming out of me. I recall asking like, is he okay? Or is the baby okay? And there's like, he's great. He's not in any distress, but our job is to make sure that he stays like that. But and so I think it was something like that. Also, plus having been in labor for so many days, I now know that I was exhausted. My uterus was so exhausted. And I just did, the P's to get the passageway, pelvis, power. My power was gone. I had no power. They're like, we need to go get some power. And it's called Pitocin. So it was sort of like that.
Yeah,
So
it's one thing if a baby is taking a long time, but it's kind of continually progressing. It's another thing if you're really not seeing progress, or possibly they were seeing that regression where the baby would come down and then go back, and then they're worried about again probably a shoulder dystocia,
mm,
which of course can be resolved at home and is very very often resolved at home. But just given the length of time, I think they're trying to be on the safer side.
Yeah, yeah. It
That's a
was
hard
intense.
call.
It was a hard call, and they knew how much I did not want to go to the hospital. Side quest for a quick moment. I'm a retired nurse. I was not going to have a baby in the hospital. So I had a lot of fear and I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of big time resistance. I did not want to have babies there. And on your show, so often you say a woman should give birth where she feels safest to give birth. For many women, that is the hospital. I was not that woman. My safe place was my house. So I was like, I cannot believe I'm doing this. I can't believe this is happening. I roll into L&D. They knew we were coming. They were like, this is hilarious. We can see your baby. Like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I know. Your guess is as good as mine. I guess I need some Pitocin. So very shortly after I got there, again, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. And my nurse was the most unbelievable godsend in the world. She had been briefed by my doula who came with us, who told her everything, my birth preferences, my hopes, all of the things. She was an angel sent from heaven. She made me feel so loved and seen. She got on my level. She was soft. She, quieted her voice. The room was dim. She was like, we know what your birth preferences are. We know we're going to do this and this and this, and you have nothing to worry about. And I'm so happy you're here. You're going to meet your baby really soon. And I'll never forget her because she actually was at my second baby's birth, which was really cool too. So it was everything I needed, and I needed her. She wasn't even my real nurse. She was like the resource nurse who was like setting the room up, and it was everything I needed in the moment. So anywho, I immediately got my Pitocin, and then within an hour, it was go time. I mean, I was already at 10, but I felt the difference, you guys. I felt the difference between my contractions and Pitocin contractions. It was like night and day. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got this. Let's just get this show on the road because I can do this now. And it was so amazing. Honestly, I know I sound like a crazy person, but pushing was so awesome. I felt like I was doing something when it came to birth. I was no longer waiting for something to happen to me. It was happening and I was part of it. And one of the best parts of this birth was right before he was born, right before his head popped out of me, fully left my body. I don't know where I went. I went somewhere in the ether that souls hang out before they come to Earth. And I saw like this dark, starry sky galaxy thing. And I was like, I'm coming in to get you. And then he was here. And it was so awesome. And very shortly after his body was out, total pushing after it was go time was about 20 minutes. So it was great. He immediately came on my chest. He had a short cord, so I couldn't put him like all the way up. He was more like this. And we didn't know we were having a boy. And my husband looks down and he says, honey, we have a son. And all, oh my gosh, it was just awesome. So as somebody who was never having her baby at the hospital, it was such an awesome experience. And I'm so grateful. So total days, 5 days. I started labor on the 28th of January. I gave birth on February 2nd, after midnight. So it was a long time, but it was great. And I look back on it and just think, God, that was awesome. I would 10 out of 10 do it again. After all of that, my placenta had not come out. And so they were like, well, we need to remove it. So the midwife who helped deliver, she tried to no avail. So then the surgeon comes in and she's like, hey, so we got to go to the OR. I can't get this out. And I said to her, I'm not going anywhere. Get it out here. And I remember having that kind of like tenseness in my voice. And she's like, all right, I'll try. And she reached up again and got it out. I had very minimal blood loss. I did tear. And they had to suture me twice. So that was fun. But having just given birth to a 7-pound, 2-ounce baby, 10 out of 10 would rather do that than have two full-grown women's arms reaching up inside my uterus. So anyway, was it a failure to wait? Was my uterus simply so tired it just didn't have anything in it to get the placenta out, which I know is still part of birth. The Pitocin was cranked up as it was. So I really didn't have a lot of options. So looking back, it was fine, but that was the end of our birth. And after all of it, it ended up being such a powerful experience. And I always lovingly say I had my home birth. I just didn't give birth at home. And it really was a fantastic hospital experience, even from somebody who was so not going to the hospital. And I went so far as to say, you know what, I would totally have a baby here again, which leads me into my second birth story with my son, Reese, who was also born at that very same hospital. Okay, so this brings me to the story of my second baby. And this pregnancy was very much like my first. It was very easy, uneventful. I feel like I should mention that this was a second planned home birth as well. And in my pregnancies, historically, I have just declined that first ultrasound. I knew when I conceived, I knew dates. I didn't feel strongly about it. So we just never did that early ultrasound. And then we also, just for preferences, I didn't need the anatomy scan. So we never did a 20-week for either of our sons. And so things are moving along beautifully, feeling great. It was actually the night of April 23rd, 2024. I was 31 weeks and I woke up in a puddle of frank red blood.
I remember
And
the text I got from you that morning.
yes, and it's 3 hours behind in California. So it was
Hmm.
like 4 a.m. my time. I'm like, I need to talk to somebody. And we'd had sex earlier that night, went to sleep, all normal things, and then about 11:45 that night, I woke up to just warm wetness beneath me, and I saw that it was frank red blood, and we immediately woke up my 14-month-old baby and got in the car. And I had one maternity diaper left over from my previous birth, and I threw it on because the bleeding was so intense. And I remember walking out to our car and thinking, oh my God, we're either having a 31-week-old baby tonight or I'm losing a 31-week-old baby tonight. And it was the scariest moment of my whole life. I remember picturing like my baby's dying right now and I'm not going to have a baby after tonight. Or my baby, pictured, the incubator in a NICU, a 31-week-old baby. And I thought, like, these are my two options. What? How are we here? How is this happening? How is this happening? And having had such a seamless pregnancy up to that moment, I'm like, I just truly can't believe this is happening. I was so afraid. I was so afraid. I was never really afraid for me. I was afraid for the baby. I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. All I had was fear, and the gravest fear one can have, really. So we're in the car, and my husband's holding my hand. He's driving and holding my hand, and he's like, "It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay." Reassurance, reassurance. And out of nowhere, I just said, if anything happens to me, like, can you make sure they try to save me and the baby? And I said it like that. And I wasn't trying to be dramatic, but retired nurse, you got to have these conversations. I didn't know what we were going into. Is this surgery? Is this a huge blood loss? Am I going to lose consciousness? I don't know. I don't have anything like that, written. So I felt like I needed to say it. And then he started to get very emotional and I was very emotional. So it was a very long 12-minute drive to the hospital. Please, please make sure that they know how bad I want to be here. Anyway, I think carry a lot of sadness from my ICU nursing days. Anyway, I felt movement right before we got to the parking garage. And you know how your mind kind of plays tricks on you when you really hope something's right or wrong, but when you're in fear mode, you just don't know. I couldn't be certain if it was real or if it was pretend or if I was making it up or if it was gas. And anyway, so we get in and the doctor's like, have you felt movement? I said, I actually just felt movement like 2 minutes ago. She immediately does a cervical exam and she's like, well, good news, you're not in labor. And I'm like, well, that's great. Why am I bleeding? Stat ultrasounds mean different things to different people because my stat ultrasound took 2 hours, but they had thrown the tachometer on me and baby had a heart rate. So that was fantastic. Life was good. So finally, when the stat ultrasound gets there, the doctor says, so good news, your placenta's not abrupting, your baby's alive, everything looks fine in there, you just have complete placenta previa. And I remember thinking, huh, okay. You're not processing, you're just like, my baby's alive, my placenta's good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Then I heard previa, and I'm like, oh, previa, wait a second. And then my brain caught up with like, my eyes and circumstances. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, so this changes everything. And my blissful dreams of my home birth, which I was so excited about, immediately went out the window. So we had a lot to unpack there, but I really got the best of possible news. My baby was well and alive, and I was okay, and I wasn't in labor, and baby was not going to be born, and baby was alive and well tonight. I just have previa, and I can look back on that and say I really just had previa. My baby was fine.
So you had never done an ultrasound?
No, I had
Very,
never done an ultrasound.
yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And basically, is it that the uterus starts growing? Maybe this is for Trisha, but like, does the uterus just start expanding such that the placenta, which is attached, now starts to cause some bleeding? Is that, Trisha, what probably happened?
Yeah, basically, when you have a previa, at some point, usually there's bleeding earlier than 31 weeks, spotting early on in pregnancy, some signs of it. But yeah, it could just be her cervix was starting to open a little bit, or as the uterus was growing, it detached a little, or just kind of it causes some bleeding as it spreads.
It's interesting because this might be a little TMI for your listeners, but I had mentioned that we had sex earlier that night, which we had throughout the pregnancy. It wasn't something that was unusual for us, but that night the orgasm was particularly intense. I remember feeling it was very intense, and it was almost like a floodgate. In that moment, it was because looking back, I'm like, that was just different. It was different than what I had been used to, and so
You turned to your husband and said, "You did
you
this."
did this. We had that conversation. It's like, if we hadn't, maybe things would be different. I'm like, no, no.
Well, it might have been a blessing in disguise to know that you had a previa before having a home birth.
It was a blessing. It
Mhm.
was a blessing in so many ways. So I know your listeners know this, but the complete placenta previa means cesarean because there's literally nowhere for the baby to exit. The path is blocked. The uterus path is blocked. So it was pretty wild to kind of go from, oh, I'm totally giving birth at home. It's fine to, no, no, you're having a surgical birth. So I was actually admitted to the antepartum unit, which some women spend a long time on. I was there for 2+ weeks. Some women are there for 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. Some women are there for a very long time. So when these doctors are like, well, you might be here till you give birth. I was like, that's so funny. You think that I have a life. I have a son. I have a husband. I have a job. I can't stay here. What do you guys want from me? And so I didn't realize at the time, again, my brain was not caught up. I was just like, my baby's alive. Now what kind of thing. So I was admitted and I was away from my son. It was absolutely horrible. We were just monitoring this bleed, counting pads, all of the things. And I will say that this part of my birth story is sad for me. It's very sad because I I was that first night especially, I was very alone. I cannot tell you what it's like to be alone in these drafty hospital rooms, completely alone, strange people coming in and out, turning on lights at all hours of the day, like not like saying words that aren't normal for you to be hearing in regular life, and just casually discussing things like surgery and your baby being in scary words like hemorrhage and like your baby being in danger. Like it's unsettling. It was really, really unsettling. And I feel like I'm pretty even keeled most of the time and I can really navigate difficult emotions. And this was just dark. I felt like alone on a life raft in the middle of the ocean. It was scary.
Do you ever wonder what that would be like for most women who aren't nurses like you are? I mean, most of us don't ever step foot in a hospital. Like, did you ever spend any time imagining what this is like for all the other women who aren't nurses? Or
And not especially, but after it gave me new appreciation for my life as a nurse and how important it is to be that beacon of love and light, even in the dark moments. And I really do think that was my superpower as a nurse. And I don't know. I think about the fear. Your mind does crazy things when you are in fear. And I was so trying not to let my brain go to that place. I'm like, and I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of, trying to come back to my breath in my body, all of that. I tried all of that and I made a lot of progress, but my brain also was a scary place those first few nights. But there is one moment that I want to highlight because it was so poignant and just absolutely seared into my memory. And I think it is a valuable piece of our birth story. And just in case it helps another mother who might find herself in a vulnerable position. So, my bleeding had slowed considerably, like barely a drop on my pads. Okay. It was brown. It was clearly old blood. It was slowing. Definitely not that bright red, copious blood from a couple of days earlier. So
From your
anyway,
big orgasm.
after the big orgasm, watch out, girls.
so I guess we're
Um,
keeping that in the episode.
Yay! I love it. I love
But if
it.
you're fine with it, we're fine with
I
it.
am absolutely fine with it. Yes.
Okay.
So, this is a little bit gross, but I was saving my pads for the doctors to like see my trend of my bleeding. And I would date it with my little Sharpie and like, oh, from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this is what it looked like. And I dated it and it was great. It was really great. And it was in my bathroom, all lined up, all the things. And it's about 11 p.m. on the second night now of me being in the hospital. And I had just fallen asleep for the first time in over 24 hours. This doctor comes in, okay? She flips the lights on. She does not introduce herself, which I remember because I have an insanely good memory and literally remember every single name of everybody who took care of me during that time. And she did not introduce herself. And I later had to ask who this doctor was, one of my nurses. And just like, again, as a nurse and a healthcare professional, I have a huge problem with that. Like, you don't just walk into somebody's room and not introduce yourself and act like you have any kind of authority over that person. I don't know. So my guard went immediately up, and I immediately did not trust this doctor. So she walks in my bathroom, looks at my pads, and she says, "We need to make you NPO. Like we might need to section you tonight. Your bleeding has not stopped."
What's NPO?
NPO means nothing by mouth, and usually,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
wait, I thought you said NPO.
It is NPO.
it's
Well, then
PO, like
what is the
PO, like
P?
oral intake. That's like just a medical term for oral intake, PO. So NPO would be nothing by mouth. So this doctor, she says, "We need to make you NPO right now. We might need to section you tonight. Your bleeding hasn't stopped." And literally up until that moment, like everything was improving. My baby was perfectly happy in there. I'm strapped to this continuous monitor, so they're watching every single second. I'm not in labor. I'm not having contractions. Nothing was imminent. My present moment in the circumstances like did not match what she was saying. So I asked her, I was like, did is my baby showing any signs of distress? No. Am I showing signs of labor or contractions? No. And I like asked her, I was like, I know my bleeding has slowed. It's brown now. It's not red. It's actually almost been negligible over the last 10 hours. And she's like, well, just in case, we need to be ready for anything. So I'm going to make you NPO. So she leaves,
Wow.
forgets to turn my light off. I was so
Are
mad.
you kidding me?
I am not
I'm
even.
so mad already that she walked in and turned it on. I treat sleep like it's sacred.
Oh,
To make any sound or noise,
mm,
to make any noise or like light around someone, the fact that she turned it on when you were asleep, but now she
mm.
left the room with the light on, I'm so mad right now.
And also,
Rude.
hospitals have a bunch of lights. They've got the big overhead light, they've got the little light by the door, they've got the bathroom light that you can close the door. There are ways to make this not awful. Okay, there are ways. Again, and I was so mad at her. So I was mad. I begrudgingly like get up, turn my light off, and I did something that was extremely healing for me. And I use it to this day whenever I get that funny feeling. So anyway, I get up, turn the light off, I get into my bed, and I immediately start praying and immediately start talking to my baby. And I told my baby, if you need to come earlier than we expected, that's totally fine. We're going to get through this together, but we are not having a cesarean with that woman. Can you just hold on? Can you hold on 8 more hours until she is off shift and gone? And if you need to be born after that, then great, but not tonight. I don't trust her with you. And then this is the really fun part. Then I pictured the most beautiful, warm, glowing, pulsating, protective, golden light surrounding my baby, surrounding my uterus. Then this bigger golden light surrounding me, and the two of us, we were just held together in this bubble of golden, healing, precious light. And I stayed in that space for the rest of the night, holding this image of us being protected together. And as I got through that night, I did not give birth. I did not stop eating and drinking, even though the order was in. I did not care, partly out of anger, but also I knew I wasn't having this baby. But I was
Also, it
letting
doesn't
her.
matter even if you were having the baby.
Exactly.
Eating out of anger. Go on.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm going to eat this burger right now. I said I was not letting her anywhere near me and not doing it. And so fast forward, I'm in antepartum for another 2 weeks away from my husband and my baby, just counting pads, praying to not go into labor, watching Pitch Perfect and Modern Family reruns.
And you logged into the postpartum group and
I,
joined us on
I
Tuesday
did
mornings.
and cried many a time during that time. And that was really hard. Just our group just is so tender, and I felt so held. And just I was so sad. It was such a sad time. And so anyway, it was a lot of reconciling, and it was a lot of just finding peace between my reality and my hopes. And so it was all about acceptance and surrender as I look back. And so also, the doctors did not believe my conception date because my baby was measuring more like 34 weeks instead of like 32 weeks, even though I knew the exact date that he was conceived. They also thought I was gestationally diabetic because he was measuring big, and I had declined the gestational screening, like, whenever you do it, 28 weeks or something. And and even though I was an inpatient and they were checking my blood sugars every 4 hours, my blood sugars were pristine. They were still convinced. They were like, you're probably gestationally diabetic, even though your blood sugars are perfect and you've gained a very normal amount of weight for your pregnancy, even though your baby's big. Well, I think God knew I didn't have 40 weeks to cook my baby because he came out a beautiful weight. And I don't know, it just was kind of funny. I kind of appeased them. I said, "Oh, let's keep doing the blood sugars. I'm not interested in doing the gestational screen at this point. You also gave me betamethasone. That's going to skew things. I wasn't crazy about it. And so that felt kind of nice to have a little, autonomy. And I knew I wasn't gestationally diabetic. I knew I wasn't. They just needed a reason for why my baby was measuring big.
I
So
have a little skit going in my head where you're sitting there saying to them, okay, so what evidence is there that I have gestational diabetes? And their response is, well, because we said so, there's your evidence.
Because you didn't do the test. That's what they think of every mother who
correct,
doesn't do the test and has a big baby has unknown
correct.
gestational diabetes.
Correct. That's exactly what it was. And they love to find, and they love tests and answers. They love things that explain other things. And I
Just in case we forget later, Emily, what did he weigh at birth?
5 pounds, 15 ounces at 34 and 5 weeks.
Wow. Okay. That's
So
a really great weight. Okay. So tell us what happened.
So finally, a doctor accepts me, which is hilarious. I'm in this hospital for however long. And finally, somebody accepts me because I was a home birth. They're like, well, we don't know who's going to take you. This doctor comes in and she's like, your baby's going to be born on May 31st. And in my head in the moment, I was like, I am not giving birth that day. That's not his birthday. Interesting. And I don't know why at the moment I felt that, but I actually ended up being discharged and started having some fluid leakage and some movement changes. He stopped moving and I knew something was wrong. And my fluid was leaking, just a little slow leak like I did with my first son. And I knew something was wrong. He wasn't moving. He didn't respond to cold water, honey, orange juice, me laying absolutely still, nothing. So I went in and they were like, you have no fluid. Your biophysical profile test is 2 out of 10. There's no fluid. He needs to come out now. The conditions have changed. And it was interesting because he was always so happy in there. And so to feel him not move, I was really concerned.
What, did I miss the part where you went home for a bit?
I did go home after the bleeding stopped. I had been in the hospital about 2 weeks and I was home for about another week before my fluid started to leak.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was home with my family. And then, I had a slow leak. He stopped moving. We immediately went to L&D. They did a biophysical. We failed. It was 2 out of 10. And they were like, it's not emergent, but it needs to happen today. And so that was May 22nd. Actually, his birthday is tomorrow. And as somebody who was never having a hospital birth and definitely never having a surgical birth, I've now had both. And it was such a wonderful cesarean. It was a wonderful cesarean. My team was fantastic. They explained everything to me. They played the music I wanted to listen to. They knew that I wanted to be involved in everything. Every incision, every time she got to a new layer, every time something happened, she told me. And it was a really, really wonderful experience. When I look back, I have nothing but grace and gratitude for how he was born. Like, I know that experience, like being away from my other child and being so in fear and having to surrender and accept. And I know that it's helping me mother this child the way that he needs to be mothered in life. And it's really healing when I look back on it. It was so hard, but I'm so good. I have a lot of reverence for my surgical birth. Even though it was so not what I wanted, I would never have picked that for myself. It was really positive. 10 out of 10. Would have another baby there.
It's a beautiful example of how a woman's made to feel in birth influences her perception of her birth experience. You can have a terrible home birth. You can have a traumatic, difficult home birth when a home birth midwife makes you feel disempowered or makes you feel ashamed or makes you feel bad about yourself in some way or your birth or you did something wrong or something like that. And then you can have a completely beautiful, empowering, safe, respected, dignified C-section because of how she treated you. Yeah. It isn't the birth itself. It is how you are made to feel.
Absolutely.
In birth that matters.
Absolutely. Every person, the anesthesiologist who did my spinal, he was amazing. The nurse who I mentioned with my first son, she was like, I saw your name. I knew your name. So I switched the assignment. I wanted to be here for you. It was so great. It was so great. And I just feel like this was so healing on so many ways, on so many levels. And I just look at him now and I think, man, like this was how it was always going to be. There's so little that we can actually control in life. So little. And that has been a lesson that I'm found has just carried through motherhood. It's wonderful. And I'm so thankful that I live in a time where I could safely have my baby despite a complete placenta previa blocking my cervix. And I feel like the lessons in birth are so wide and reaching and just I'm thankful every moment.